Jeremy, so excited to have you on today, as I know you must be busy with the official launch of Smarter Technologies yesterday. Between the press coverage and all the industry dialogue on the new AI automation platform you launched for hospitals and health systems, I have gotten a pretty significant amount of inbound questions from executives and revenue cycle leaders at hospitals from asking for more information on Smarter Technologies. Wanted you to quickly give an overview of the company, and then I thought we could dive into a few questions from our audience. Sound good?
That sounds great.
Jeremy, tell me about your background leading up to Smarter Technologies.
Yeah, I should probably go back kind of way into history. So I was sitting in a class in graduate school in 2001, and this young, incredibly energetic man named Todd Park walked into the room and presented athenahealth. And, think back to what the world might have looked like in 2001. The internet was, for me, Amazon.com and the New York Times. And I guess there were some pet food stores, but no one was delivering hardcore enterprise software over the internet at the time. Like Salesforce was just getting going. I had started my career in management consulting at Deloitte, where I was working for payers and providers. And I saw this just kind of strange interchange where both sides were frustrated about how things worked, recognized that it was difficult, but there was really nothing in the middle to bridge it. And so when I heard Todd describe what Athena did, and this idea of understanding what payers need to see on a claim to get paid and putting that into the business process for providers, I was hooked. So I had to go back to Deloitte for a couple of years. Uncle Deloitte put me through business school and I had to work off the debt. When that was done, I spent 6 months trying to get a job at Athena. I started there in 2004 as a product manager for Athena Collector. And I moved back and forth between operations and technology kind of all the time at Athena. I ran the CBO and the payment posting operation. And then I ultimately took over the engineering organization and product development. And I just loved the space because one of the things I love about RCM is that there's an objective truth, right? About what should be paid and why. And there's a beginning and a middle and an end to that process. And if you apply technology and really good skilled labor to the problem, you can just deliver great outcomes. And there's still then, because of how complex it is, a lot of opportunity that's left on the table to then further figure out how to optimize. And I ended up spending about 11 years at Athena. Obviously, the EHR wave came, and I served on the Health IT Standards Committee to help figure out how healthcare data could be moving better between these electronic platforms. And I had this moment where I was just like, I was 29 when I started at Athena, and I was now 40. And I was just saying to myself, wait a minute, that's a long time to do any one thing. And, I think change is good. So I had a really cool opportunity to do a sabbatical outside of healthcare. So I was the CTO at Wayfair, which is a consumer facing business. And it was a super high growth company when I was joining. It was really wild. And what I really learned at Wayfair was pace, because this was a massively unregulated business. And I saw how fast it was possible to move. And I had always had an idea of wanting to sort of start a consumer business in healthcare. And within a couple of years of getting to Wayfair, Todd Park was spinning out of the Obama administration. Ed Park was leaving Athena. And we started a company called Devoted Health, which was kind of back in my home lane. So we built a very large virtual medical group and a health plan, a Medicare Advantage plan. And so I got to build from the payer side all of the workflows that used to frustrate me. Also, very enlightening to just understand what the concerns were as a payer, right? That you don't always understand if you're just on the provider side. But I also got a lot of exposure to some really great health systems and how they managed their revenue cycle. And I really got to understand what was going on in the payment integrity world and just how much money certain payers were targeting to get back to manage medical costs. And, I could really see some, you know, like a real mounting friction with providers on this topic in particular as the tools were really proliferating. And anyway, we got devoted to a great, really stable point. We had built multiple 5-star plans. We built all the tech to power a health plan in a provider group, and our clinical quality was among the best in the country. I do really well in that early creative phase, and it felt like there were people who were in the company who deserved their chance to take on the COO role. So Mona Nanavati, who I worked with for a very long time, was just ready, and it was sort of not fair for me to sort of just sit there. And so I moved on to the board, and then have been working with Matt Holt, really over the last year on developing a thesis about what would a clean sheet of paper look like today if you were to build an RCM platform. We talked to a lot of people, talked to a lot of providers. We're able to construct a platform from scratch, which is really an amazing opportunity. Like, I'm not like a traditional PE CEO, and this isn't like a traditional play, right? We're assembling some venture-backed assets with some really scaled delivery assets, and that's an unusual way to start a business.
I love it. I'm super excited for you and the team to build this.
Thanks, Jared. I've been getting the question about, like, why did we do this now? The answer is that this is like an incredibly obvious thing to go do. Now, actually making it work is the hard part. You look at what's going on right now in the world. So we have this unbelievable technical innovation going on with this rapid deployment and adoption of AI. We have some real societal outrage about healthcare in general. And a lot of that anger seems to come up on about the administrative side of healthcare, about, how we pay for it and how patients get stuck in the middle. And then the last thing is that, provider health systems are under a lot of financial pressure, right? So there's soaring labor costs. Payers have been deploying AI for the last few years and have a bit of a head start. And so there's been this clawing back of revenue that's been attributed to those kinds of advancements. And, providers are just sitting there dealing with all these forces. And so when you think about what AI can do today, healthcare is probably the best area to focus, and specifically on the administrative part of healthcare, which everyone agrees is way too expensive. No one loves how it works. It's a bit of a moral injury that it's so expensive, right? Like, why should it cost 5%, 9% cost to collect to just exist as a health system? Why isn't it 1% or 1.5%? I think that the technologies that we have today open up that promise in ways that we've never seen before.
Jeremy, the first question I have here is from a hospital CFO that follows slice of healthcare. Why bring these three specific companies together? And what can smarter technologies now do to help a hospital across its revenue cycle management process, given all the moving parts?
Yeah. So has been almost like a dream for me to have this opportunity to go out in the market and see what's working, and to come up with combinations of platforms that make a lot of sense together and ultimately be able to deliver more than they could independently. And so I think when we look at an agentic AI offering, so what we know in revenue cycle is that there's just a huge amount of work to go get done that falls to largely entirely human beings today, essentially. And when you look at the state of technology, the brightest minds have been working on figuring out how to begin to address that. And so the way I think about agentic AI is that it's just the next wave of like great efficiency unlock after offshoring, right? Which many healthcare organizations have already taken advantage of. But then the question becomes, well, then what's the next efficiency that we get after that? And that really is, I think, the agentic opportunity, right? Is to first have some healthcare specific, deeply trained on the context of the work, grounded in offline workflows about deterministically understanding what needs to be done with then the reasoning capabilities of some of these tools. Let that have an opportunity to work first. And then we know that healthcare is so complex, where it's not like people think it is, where you can like automate 100% of anything, no matter, because the technology is great. Like we just know that that's not how it works, right? There are so many edge cases, so all these breakages that occur in the process, that you need then people who are able to pick up what the agents can't do, right? And I refer to this as human in the loop. That's not my term. That's kind of how the world thinks about it. But in healthcare in particular, that's not a trivial amount of work that's going to be left over, right? The other thing that I would say is that you need people to monitor the technology does, right? And because of the unique um, business context that exists in our world. And then the last thing is, when you look at the opportunities for machine learning, for provider organizations, it's like the mirror image opportunity of what payers have been doing for several years, right? Which is using machine learning techniques to find, what I would say for providers are little pots of gold of under collected revenue or lost revenue, where if you can identify it and tee it up for a human to take a look at, and attempt to go collect that, that you can really improve the bottom line of a health system. And so, what we brought together were all those three elements, right? So Thoughtful AI was the leading agentic AI platform. Access Healthcare is an organization that's been around for a long time. I was a two-time client of Access Healthcare when I was at Athena and when I was at Devoted. And then SmarterDx, which is a fantastic ML team, whose first product in the pre-bill space is growing like wildfire and really found a niche. And so bringing those businesses together, like, feel really obvious to me, in a way to start figuring out how you put those together in different modular combinations to begin offering the health systems.
I love it. That's so exciting. I'm so excited for you and the team. The next question, Jeremy, that I have here is actually from a revenue cycle management leader at a large multi-site hospital. We have a large RCM process in place and just now thinking of how we use AI to help streamline. What kind of flexibility will smarter technologies bring so that we don't have to completely displace our RCM operation?
Yeah, I think one of the core principles that the team has from day one is this concept of modularity, right? So there are people who just exist in the world in the end-to-end outsourcing space, and though that meets the needs of certain organizations, that's not what we aim to be or what we are. Right. So I think that there are a lot of health systems who've invested quite a bit in their RCM operations, and they might find that they need leverage in a particular workflow or use case. So that might be in, patient eligibility and benefit verification, or prior auth, or AR follow-up. And I think our idea is that we offer those modularly. You can buy them together, you can buy just one of them. And that would be the combination of the agentic AI agents, virtual agents, and then the human in the loop platform that we have to make sure that we can sell that as a complete service, that completes all the work and can demonstrate some really fantastic outcomes around the turnaround time, the quality, and other KPIs that are specific to that workflow. And then if you think about SmarterDx, which is our revenue integrity franchise, by nature, those solutions are modular, right? So you can pick to just layer that on top of your existing operation to help optimize for, hidden revenue, lost revenue, that otherwise wouldn't be caught. And so I think the future is modular in my mind, and building from day one for that capability is really exciting to me.
So this one is from a CIO of a major health system. As we think about our larger AI strategy and how we support this from the IT perspective, how should we think about the various areas of the RCM process smarter technologies can take on and bring scale?
Yeah. So, I've been working on the administrative side of healthcare, the RCM side of healthcare for a long time. And when I think about the potential for AI, it really is in the what I would call mostly back office workflows, where, the aim is to make those as high quality and as low cost as possible. And so what I think is an unproven use case so far in healthcare, we don't touch anything related to patient care. I think you start to get into a lot of like moral ethical dilemma. And quite honestly, both as a patient and a citizen, those make me quite uncomfortable. And so, yeah, I think first of all, having some governance around what is even safe to do today is a conversation to have. And then the other area of AI where, I'm just not sure that the state of art is there yet would be customer facing voice work. Right. So when I was at Devoted, one of the things that we figured out was, wait a minute, service to our members and our patients, that's actually a revenue center. That's not a cost center. And so I think there will be a time where, perhaps we could develop an offering where when the American consumer is used to dealing with virtual agents, and then you can staff onshore the human in the loop part of it. That to me would be a really compelling product. But I just don't think that the technology is there yet where, you can have a fully satisfying conversation and that the consumer is comfortable with it. And I would argue that that's not a great place, starting with a healthcare use case, it's too important, too personal. The stakes are too high, I think, to be leading edge there if I were, running a health system. And so I think that the opportunity really is in what I would call, the end of the front end of revenue cycle, sort of that eligibility, benefit verification, prior auth, moving into the mid cycle and really the back end revenue cycle around, AR management, payment posting, appeal management, management of clinical denials, things like that, where these business processes are pretty well established. We know what success looks like. And in fact, by applying technology into these areas, I think we actually get a better patient outcome, right? So if you can consistently and like 100% of the time follow a standard operating procedure about, say, when a patient gets billed, we can prevent a lot of incorrect patient bills showing up in mailboxes across the country, right? And when people get those bills, it's kind of frightening. They might start rationing how they spend their money, and so I think it really is in that that interchange between the payers and the providers around the billing workflows, the single best use case today, and it's where there's a lot of labor out, devoted to the problem within health systems. It's where a lot of technology has been deployed. So, we're not a core processing platform. We work within those platforms. And I think that where we come to play is making the overall cost to collect a lot less expensive by, leveraging agentic AI, our global platform, and really making the turnaround time, quality, and ultimately the outcomes a lot higher.
Jeremy, again, I've said it several times, but I am so excited for you and the team, and I am so glad that you agreed to come on, answer a couple of questions that we received from the audience. I know they'll appreciate it, as do I, and look forward to future conversations. I know this is, you guys are just getting rolling. This is going to be awesome. But yeah, thanks again so much for joining me here today.
Thanks, Jared. It's funny. This is the first time we've had a chance to meet. I've been watching, and it's just a thrill to be able to come onto the show.
Thanks so much.